to Archie Friday. We are delighted to host Amarisha So for today's sessions, AI-powered dynamic pricing from strategy to implementation in modern retail. In this session, Amarisha will highlight how artificial intelligence is transforming pricing strategy from vision to execution through competitive analysis, personalization, and continuous optimizations. This presentation embodies the spirit of Archie Friday. Blending expertise, innovation, and actionable framework to rethink business model in the age of AI. With that, I now pass it over to Seme, my co-host, to introduce the session further and also Archie Friday. Seme.
Thank you very much, Rodrigue. Thank you for all of you for being part of this session. So welcome to Archie Fridays, this new session as mentioned by Rodrigue. So my name is Sami Ben Salem. I'm a data architect, and we have the pleasure to present this new session with our special guest, Amarish Saho, to present and explore the different technologies that we can implement, AI technologies that we can implement in the retail field. So just a quick reminder about Archie Friday as we usually do it. So the goal of Archie Friday is to deliver engaging sessions, to connect the global community of innovators, and we are also committed to continuing to bring you a diverse selection of top tier speakers to showcase the best in architecture and the latest technologies that we can implement in different fields. So as we mentioned, the topic of today will be AI powered dynamic pricing from strategy to implementation in modern retail. The topic will be presented by our distinguished speaker, Amarish Sao from the United States. And we want to thank him very much for his involvement in this session, especially the different time zones that we have between Paris time and USA. So once again, thank you very much. And so without taking much time from the session, Amarish, mic is yours. I will let you give us your insights and what we can learn from those AI technologies in modern retail implementation.
Yeah. Thank you, Rodrigue and Seme. Pleasure to be here and share some of my experiences. Just a quick introduction. I'm Amresh Sahu. I'm currently a vice president at this company called Zometry, which is an online marketplace, and I'm the vice president for pricing and analytics. I have been in this tech and e-commerce space for last several years, and dealing with some of the challenges around pricing in retail, in e-commerce, and marketplaces. I'd love to share how things have evolved over the last few years, and how we are using AI to make our lives easier, or I say solve complex problems on a day-to-day basis in the pricing space. So, as most of us know, AI in retail, it's no news here. It's going to be a 85, 90 billion market in by 2030. It's growing at a rapid pace. Um, as we see, like in terms of personalization, targeting, and making real-time decision, AI involvement in retail space is growing at an astronomical pace. Um, Moving on this, why we use AI for pricing. As we know, whether it's online, e-commerce, or retail space, it's all about making sure what our customers are looking for, what are the different product types we have, and how we can make sure that across all the different variables, we are optimizing on a real-time basis. And pricing is key because pricing is the main driver for revenue growth, profit margins, and that's where AI can make help with decisioning on a real-time basis, because we are trying to optimize multiple things across different dimensions, whether it's market volatility, your own supply chain challenges or sourcing challenges, or there are margin expectations that you need to constantly juggle between among across all these factors. Of course, we want to make the decisioning efficient. So with AI powered or ML models, we see we can drive somewhere up to 25-30% of revenue top line growth. We can drive a lot of sourcing efficiency or supply chain efficiency that feeds into your profit margins. And of course, the decisioning makes it easier for optimizing your efficiency. So you not only get better at decision making, but also you make it faster. And that's why AI comes in extremely powerful as an extremely powerful tool. Some of the core technical capabilities. I'll start from the right. Of course, as we have been talking about, the multiple decisioning points in the pricing world. So you need to have uh, um, ML models, LLM models running in real time. So you need to make sure that the infrastructure is able to support that in a seamless manner. You need robust data pipeline architecture. You need robust implementation, integration, because you don't want any latency on your website. When customers are coming in, even if you have to run several models in the background, we have to ensure that the decision happens in fraction of seconds. And it's extremely complex in for a company like Xometry. I'll probably cover later in the slides, because it's not just to get the pricing, it's not just running few mathematical models. Also involves analyzing 3D parts or drawings or models in the real time, extracting features, and then looking at historical data and making decisions. So to make all this happen seamlessly, we have to make sure that all the integrations, all the infrastructure are working seamlessly, and they're able to scale as well. You have millions of customers coming in every day. You have um, thousands of SKUs or orders to process. So you have to make sure that it is not only scaling, it is scaling accurately. Some of the key capabilities that we come across in pricing. As we know, pricing is so market driven, and with pricing, you can always influence your demand. So elasticity modeling is one of the key capabilities that we spend a lot of time on, and things have evolved over the last few years. Um, Today we use different techniques to do elasticity modeling, whether just getting the historical data and using ML models to understand the price elasticity, or running experiments, whether it's a multi-arm-banded experiment or multivariate testing that we need to continuously run to understand how our demand is varying with prices, and how we can use that data to make our models better. So having a strong grasp on elasticity for your segment is key here, and that's where uh, um, all the AI and the machine learning capabilities can be handy. The other area is competitive benchmarking. As a marketplace, you always have to aware what's going on outside of your company, because that's where you can get a benchmark. If your competitors are pricing better than you'll erode your demand. So constantly getting that competitor data, analyzing it, and informing, using those insights to inform your models is the key here. With AI, I would say our ability to respond to the market and make price correction has increased by 50 to 75%. So I'd say it is a big efficiency gain, but at the same time gives us a competitive gives an advantage over our competitors. Additionally, as we know, personalization is not new. Like with AI based pricing, dynamic pricing, we always try to tailor our prices for different customers across different parts of the journey. Whether it's a new customer or existing customer, you want to provide a special price for depending on how their lifetime value, or they are you want to target customers who are dropping off after cart abandonment, or you want to target your churn customers. All those decision needs to happen. You constantly need to balance between revenue, margins, and efficiency. That's why AI comes in handy to make it easier for us to drive those decisions. And some of the underlying uh, techniques that we use for these capabilities, as I said, I'll start with the middle one, computer vision. That plays a big role in getting your competitor data, analyzing similar SKUs, or making sure how um, the SKUs you have or the products you're selling, how similar products compare on the competitor websites or companies' websites. So that's where computer vision comes in play. A lot of data crunching and data gathering and making sense out of it. That's where that is critical. Natural language processing is another one where, especially in a marketplace space, these are needed to understand what is the sentiment trending in the reviews. Now it has evolved to LLMs. It has gotten very even faster to get a sense of, like, are we doing the right things? Are people complaining about our product prices or quality? Those things are critical for us to see how we use those information to make our pricing smarter, and make sure that we are reaching out to the customers who are getting impacted, any bad experience, or learn from that to inform our overall product and pricing strategy. uh, all these models, and the other one is, I'd say, like the reinforcement learning, which is critical here because your models need to constantly evolve to market conditions, and your internal parameters like the supply chain efficiency, or the new features we adding the product. So all these things needs to be incorporated, so the models cannot be stale. So you need to continuously make these models learn from the feedback they're getting on a regular basis. Getting back to specific to geometry, as I highlighted earlier in the discussion, geometry pricing is very unique, and I must say that makes the work very interesting. So think of it, just to give a little bit of introduction about how the geometry platform works. It is a custom manufacturing marketplace. So essentially, if there is an innovator, they came up with a new part for a drone, and they cannot source it anywhere because it's a new invention. So they come to geometry and they upload that specific part for that drone. They upload their CAD files or drawings on our instant code engine, and the instant code engine takes that part and extracts the various geometric attributes from those diagram, whether it's a round shaped part, or whether it's a rectangular part. Are there holes in it? What kind of finish does it look for? And of course, we collect some input from the customers, and based on those inputs and the geometric attribute extraction, um, we look into our historical sourcing data. So we run several AI models to determine how, at what price point, we have been able to source similar kind of parts, or parts with similar geometric attributes and features and materials and process types. Based on that, we come up with a recommended price. Of course, it will incorporate some margin expectation, and we do all these things in the real time. So I talked about a few different things here: geometry extraction, sourcing cost analysis, and then how to price it. That also involves our competitor data or competitor insight. So the competitor insight also feeds into the model to make sure whatever we're pricing, we're not just adjusting for our sourcing cost, but also we are adjusting for the what the competitor price would be. So all this decisioning goes in together to come up with a price point, and we provide to the customer in fraction of seconds. And then depending on whether customers convert or not, if the customer converts, that becomes a positive feedback. If the customer does not convert, that becomes a negative feedback. And that kind of we use on a we call it a conversion awareness model. So we kind of that feedback is fed to the model afterwards to ensure that we are getting we are maximizing for conversion in these cases. The other side of the story is if we price this in at a certain price point, but we had issues in sourcing later, because then that will be a feedback to our prediction, the cost prediction model, that there is, if we are not able to source it at the cost that it predicted, then we get prediction error, cost prediction error, and that cost prediction error also adds as a feedback to ensure that the model is accounting for and learning from it. But with this, all these, as I say, like the key things here is like you have to make sure the response time is short. So we may have to make sure that the accuracy, the price prediction is accurate. We have to make sure that customers are able to get the price they want and in a way they want, and we have to make sure that we are able to scale it across these different models, these different systems, and provide a price point that is a winning price for the customer within fraction of seconds. So all these things go in together, and that somehow makes this problem more complex. But with AI based approach, we have been able to resolve this. And to do all these things, again, uh, the framework we use, first of all, we need a lot of data. The data foundations must be robust. All the algorithmic development that we're building new models. We do a lot of reinforcement learning to make sure these models are getting better. We do a lot of back testing to ensure if we're launching a new model, it is back tested and gives enough evidence that it will work in the right direction or provide the outcome we're looking for. Then, of course, we launch it in a limited environment, like for A/B testing or multi variate testing, where we can measure the performance of the model and how it is interacting with all the rest of the ecosystem. So with that, once we run the test, we get the confidence that this model is working in the right direction, then we go for a full integration. Of course, if the model doesn't work as intended, you have to go back to drawing board and see what are the additional attributes where it is not working based on the experimental data. But again, this is a constantly, it's a continuous process of experimentation, evolving your models, and adapting to changing variables such as market conditions or internal sourcing, and all these different factors. And as we see some of the things, emerging trends, again, the problem I shared, it is extremely complex and exciting, but this is not the one problem that with AI folks are solving. AI in pricing is evolving very fast. One of the things I would draw everyone's attention, it is something I encountered pretty closely in my last gig, omni-channel, how we price effectively in an omni-channel setup, especially in many e-commerce companies like Amazon, Wayfair, and others. They're exploring physical presence. How we make sure that our data, we are stitching the data across online and in store experiences, and how we can be more effective and targeted in pricing. So um, that's going to be one of the exciting challenges to solve in the pricing world. Bundle optimization, that's been going on in retail space for some time, but it's getting smarter and smarter. But there are areas where we do believe that this AI-based pricing needs to be more intelligent, account for variable multiple factors, whether it's market conditions or internal variables, and it's continuously evolving. And with LLMs coming in, very soon we'll have agentic approach to pricing, where some of the decision we are needs manual intervention today, we can have future um, LLM agents actually making those decisions and doing real-time optimizations. So that's something to watch out for, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to experiment some of these. But yeah, that's a lot of exciting innovation coming this space. Again, how to achieve these kind of all the complexity and make it work at scale. Of course, there are infrastructure components where you have to make sure that the real-time data ingestion, model training, all the necessary data to have the right optimization, and at the same time making sure there continuous monitoring of the performance, not just the pricing accuracy or pricing leakage, but also how the data accuracy that is powering the pricing models. So all those checks and automated monitoring will be key, and you need a solid team for this. So it's today at Xometry and in my prior companies also, it is a combination of um, data scientists, data engineers, business analysts, economists, pricing strategists, finance. So we have different folks getting together to make decisions to drive the right outcome for the business and for the customers. And as I said, with pricing plays a key role for any company or any business. Uh, Gross margin, conversion rate, and driving efficiency. That's where all the things we discussed today drive a lot of improvement across these different dimensions. So just to kind of going back to think of like your pricing roadmap. Again, when I started this job some time ago, the first thing, like, this is how I thought about how we can understand what is the maturity of our existing pricing system and pricing processes. Is it one size fits all, or we have the ability to be tailored depending on the customer segment or the customer journey? uh, uh, can we do we have the agility to evolve in the real time depending on the market conditions? So that maturity assessment is key to ensure where we are today and where we want to be, and accordingly where we need to plug in ML or AI capabilities. We talked about how we can start small. Pricing, it's the backbone of any company. So the best thing, there'll be a lot of ideas how we can run proof of concepts, experiments, using that approach of like start small, test and iterate is the key here. And to do that, we need a strong cross-functional team across different kind of skill sets, and then working with various cross-functional teams to roll out the prices. So it's not just a model change. It has downstream impacts as well. How it impacts our supply chain, our sourcing, how it impacts all the downstream activities such as sales, marketing, how we spread the word and making sure the price changes are getting reflected correctly and being communicated to our customers. That's it, is having that line of sight on the price implementation, and project management is key for making the price change successful. That's pretty much, we cover different aspects of pricing and how we are using AI in pricing. And yeah, I'll love to open up the floor for any questions.
So, thank you very much, Amarish, for this presentation and for all those valuable information you shared with us, and especially the vision that you have and what you have implemented for this solution in order to optimize retail activity, especially for the sales. Yes, of course, we have a lot of questions. I think that Rodrigue has already monitored all the platforms, and we have some questions that I don't know if you can see them on the chat.
Let me see. Yeah, actually, I can see in the
Yes.
chat. Yeah. So the first question is, how can elasticity modeling be effectively applied across different product categories with varying customer behaviors? Yeah, so that's a great question. As I say, the elasticity will vary by different uh, customer segments and depending on the product types. I'll use a simple example. You go to a grocery store to buy eggs, and if the egg is, say, I'm using dollars here because I live in the
Yes.
US. If it's $5 for a dozen egg, you're like, okay, maybe it's I can still afford it. But if it's $15, well, no, that doesn't mean that I won't buy $15 item, any other $15 item from the store. No, I cannot. I just don't like to pay $15 for the eggs. So that's why it comes in, like, for product categories, you will have different sensitivity, and sensitive by customer segments is different. My wife's customer sensitive elasticity to eggs and my elasticity to eggs are very different. I will never buy $10 eggs, but my wife will be probably fine with it. So that's why the key here is how we can identify this customer personas. So the various companies have different ways of doing it. Like new customer or existing customers, or we have few different segments. We call them emerging customer segment, enterprise customer segment, or the hobbies, we call them like prospects. So depending on what different customer segments are coming to a website and what are the different types of product categories you have, um, you have to actually run the experiment to understand what the elasticity would be. Again, if you get a blanket curve for your entire customer base, that elasticity will be off because it will be averaged out across different segments. So the experimentation needs to be set up in a way that you can get confidence in the sensitivity or elasticity of the specific segment and specific categories, and then we can use that to inform the product, the pricing for the respective product. Again, one thing to keep in mind, when you're looking at historical data, you're probably going by product category to understand how demand has varied in the past. And within that demand, you have to see, okay, how different customer segment demand has varied, and then use that as an attribute in your model to predict the price for specific product categories, and also how we can tailor it for the customer segment, whether it's like specific discounting, or in some cases you can take a blended approach to make sure that, hey, this is where I have a big variance in elasticity, then maybe I can use an average approach. I may incur some losses that becomes a loss later, but in some other places you see it's a less elastic or inelastic segment, you can always change the prices there. So that's kind of like high level how we can cover this. Um, Moving to the next one, what are the
Yes.
main challenges in implementing edge computing for large scale dynamic pricing systems? Yeah, this is where the challenge is, how do you balance your prediction accuracy with latency? Because as I said, like, there are multiple variables that goes into pricing decision. But as we know, as we incorporate more models, more information, getting at a fast speed becomes challenging. So you have to constantly optimize what input is critical versus what input is good to have. Is it a must needed or not, and how it impacts the performance, making sure the information points that doesn't need a real-time update, if we can cache it, what can be cached versus what can be determined on the real time, that becomes critical. So in a way, I would say, to summarize, first you have to be very balanced and be critical about what input are absolutely necessary and what input needs to be in a real time decision making versus what can be cached. I think those decisions will be key to handle some of these challenges. What you don't want is your customers are on a website and they're waiting for 5 minutes to get the prices. It has to be in fraction of seconds. So that's what we're trying to solve for. How does personalization in pricing impact customer trust and long-term loyalty? This is a great question. And at time often people think pricing as a short-term thing. They say, hey, I'll just increase the prices, get some margins, and hit my profitability targets. But it has a longer term implication, because if your prices are too high, either you will churn your customers or you lose new customers. They come to your website, you spend all those marketing dollars to get them on your site, and then they say, okay, this is too expensive, 5 times more expensive. So you lose those customers forever. So that's why the key here is how we can personalize or target these prices by customer types to make sure we are winning them forever. Many companies do a first user discount. So was that the reason behind this is, okay, we want to wow the customer in the first time and then win their loyalty forever. There are companies where they to drive more repeat behavior, you give quantity discounts, or you get like some dollar based, value based discount, that to make sure like customers not only buying from you, just buying from you, they're buying more. And the other thing is also, you can delight the customers by saying, hey, you have been shopping with us for so many times. Here is a coupon for you, or here is the reward programs. So there are different ways we can target customers depending on their value, depending on their shopping pattern, and make the pricing personalized. And all these things have to solve for longer term conversion and the lifetime value. That's why when we run the pricing experiments, one of the things that we monitor is not just the conversion for the testing time frame, but also how the conversion of that cohort is changing over time, or what is the value of the customer over a period of time, and how it is changing by the decision we do on the pricing side. In what scenarios does competitive analysis risk triggering a race to the bottom in pricing? Um, yeah, this is another great question here. It is kind of, yeah, price war is not good for anyone. Everyone loses in that. So I would, the way I would look at it is, it is good to get the competitor data and contextualize where we want to be close to the competitors. And it's not just price, it's price and value. If if we have a specific value that we provide to our customers, then we don't have to have the rock bottom prices. For example, I used to work with a furniture e-commerce company um, in my last job, and we always thought about, okay, can we just price it the cheapest and win the market? But then we realized that selling the cheapest product is not the only way to win, or is not the best way to win. We can always add something which is a differentiator, which is essentially, can we give a white glove service when you do the furniture delivery? So it's more like customers, they just not just get a box outside their yard. It is more like, okay, somebody can come in and set it up for you at a very minimal cost. So in those cases, it is not necessary to have the rock bottom prices. So if we can add some value differentiation to your products or services in addition to reasonable prices, you don't have to hit the rock bottom. if you don't have the value prop, the other way to think about is you don't have to beat the competitor in prices. You have to match the competitor, or you have to be in the closer proximity of the competitor, as long as it allows your cost structure and your financial expectations. So if some retailer is pricing it for $100, do I need to be absolutely hit the $100? Maybe not. Do we have to price it $90? Yeah, I can price it $90 if I can source something at $50. But if I'm not able to source it at $50, I'm sourcing at $90, I cannot price it $90. I have to price it $100. So can it be in that right vicinity, so that we're not necessarily raising a price war by dropping our prices more than competitors, but matching the competitors while being mindful of our cost structure.
Yeah, I have a sub question for that. Uh, do you think that there are some industry where cost response time is more a stronger differentiator than price itself, or it is same everywhere?
Oh, can you repeat that again? Sorry, I
Yeah,
missed the last
I
part.
want to know if in which industry is cost response time a stronger differentiator than price itself?
Gotcha. Yeah. So as I would say, the like all this while I have worked in e-commerce and retail, I have seen that the cost differentiator plays a big role here, because if you don't have the cost structure, it's very hard to compete on the price, because in the end of the day, you'll erode margin and give away money,
Mhm.
especially in the e-commerce and retail space. Uh, Businesses who have a buyer power from their suppliers, they end up winning the race here, because they get the products dirt cheap, and they can price it dirt cheap. So that's why I'd say, like, it is kind of most of the places, unless the we are talking about say iPhone, where they don't have to price cheap. They don't have to match the product of like the cheapest phone, because there's so much of value prop.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, in the normal generic retail space, cost is advantage. But when as you go for higher end, a little bit more on the side of the luxury, not necessarily luxury, but higher end products, that's where you can do your price could be a little bit removed from the cost, because you have either a brand perception or a differentiating value, or you have a way to tie customers to your ecosystem, and they're not willing to switch.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Next question is, how can natural language processing help retailers adapt prices in real time based on shifts in customer sentiment? Yeah, as in, n- like, there are so many online forums where today is, whether it's Reddit or all the different forums where customers can always complain about the prices, services. I think those forums are important. There are many LLM companies who are actually who can easily grab those insights and provide you on the real time, whether like it used to be NLP, now it's, yeah, it's kind of like LM more. Those things are going to be commodity very soon, because if you're not paying attention to these forums, you will lose out. So getting a sense on, if you, especially, it becomes critical when you're launching a new product or a new price change. So if you launch something and you get immediate pushback in those forums, I think those will be critical things to know, that okay, there's something wrong with my product, something wrong with my price, I need to adjust it on real time. So it is extremely critical, and with LLM evolution, I think it's getting more and more critical. How are you doing on time? I just want to make sure I'm not going over. Sorry, Samay, you're on mute.
We still have 10 minutes in the session, so we have
Okay.
time for the remaining questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. What are the main ethical consideration when using reinforcement learning to experiment with customer facing prices? Well, this is an interesting question. We try to, when we're running experiments, w- there'll be situations where one variant will see a different price point than the other variant. It is again, there are it's not the most ideal experience, because you want to make sure your pricing is consistent, customers are seeing the same experience. And I have seen myself, when someone is running experiment, I log in one browser with and I see a different price when I log in with a different ID from a different browser, because I was AB split when I went to the site. It's not ideal, but then I would say this is kind of this is the only way to learn and figure out with what your hypothesis is valid or not. If we have to minimize, we often do uneven experiments, where instead of a 50-50 experiment, we do a 10-90 split or 20-80 split. So you can reduce the level of inconsistency if you're reducing the variant or one of the slices to a smaller fraction. But I would say, like, this is part of the process, not the most ideal experience, but we have to do it to make sure we are not breaking things, or our hypothesis is right. How does AI driven coding improving the balance between customer acquisition and profitability in custom manufacturing? Yeah, this is a great question. Uh, so in the, as I said, like especially in custom manufacturing world, every pricing decision is a new decision. It's not like pricing a chair or pricing milk or pricing a table, which is similar, very similar across all the other retailers or other places you can find. It is more about you pricing a unique part that has not been seen before. It has unique features, and based on that, okay, so you just estimated, oh, this is how much it will cost to make it, and this is how much our competitors should might be pricing it based on the material and the type of processes. So there is always this kind of like newness. It's like pricing a new item every time customer orders on your platform. So that's where you have to constantly be aware of, like, what you're getting a right pulse on the sourcing cost should be. So getting that cost prediction accurate is the key here, because the moment you don't get it right, you erode into your margin. So you might have asked the customer to pay $100 for something, but later you find that you cannot source it for $200, so you will incur loss. So that is key, getting the cost accuracy right and making sure you're staying close to the sourcing data and sourcing models. um, in terms of customer acquisition, that's where also you have to that's where the competitor data comes in play, because if there's a new customer coming into a website and it's a commoditized custom manufacturing, you have to make sure you're giving them the best price. So especially quantity one items, you need to price it competitively. Often retailers, they you get a value discount or a volume based discount, but when someone is shopping around, especially a new customer, they will just upload one item and say, okay, how much I'm getting, what is the price here. So making sure that you're pricing your default and quantity one items, you're pricing it aggressively to make sure you're able to get the new customers hooked onto your platform. What role does historical order data play in enhancing the accuracy of cost and lead time predictions? This is again the historical data is the only data, like one of the main data sets that we use to predict our cost and lead times. And the one thing to keep in mind is, when we are using this historical data, we have to also contextualize that if some supplier manufacturer were able to give us a discounted price for certain products because they had idle capacity or they had too much of capacity, so they're like, okay, rather than keeping my machines idle, I would take something for $20 cheaper. So there are some variables like that where it is a function of the supplier capacity and all those. So we have to contextualize all those things, but that's kind of like some of the key things to look at. Roderick, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. Let's see. During your presentation, I understand that the competitor pricing data is valuable for AI models, But since these prices are not always easy to access in real time, how can we manage this challenge effectively?
Sorry, can you please repeat the
Yeah,
question?
I understand that the competitor pricing data is valuable for AI models. But since these prices are not always easy to access in real time, so my question, how can we manage this challenge in an effective way?
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, that's an excellent question. And so yeah, this is exactly one of the challenges we have been dealing with. But the way we solve it is you, the competitor data, because the part never existed, you cannot go and check on competitor's website what would it cost. So what we do is have created a basket of parts where we it represents the complexity, the material, the type of processes that we normally get. So we take that basket and try to get that benchmarking on a regular basis. And then we use that data to inform our model. So in our case, the computer data, we collect the computer data on a regular basis, not necessarily on a real time basis, but we use the insight from that data to inform our pricing decision on a real time. So the key here is that since these parts have never been made before, it is very hard to get the exact prices. But can you simulate a similar product or part types and create a basket and get your competitor data on a regular basis? And that's how we kind of think about the relative price index, and kind of get that data. That's an excellent question.
Thank you for your response.
Okay, moving to the next one. How does reducing code response times from hours to seconds influence customer decision making in competitive markets? This is extremely critical because you can lose customers in few minutes. So if um, especially, I think there is one thing is like the customers have a timeline in their mind, how many places they want to quote, and how quickly they want to close. Depends on the urgency they have, they will have a timeline in mind. But even if they say, hey, I can take 2 days to finalize where I want to buy, and let me shop around and get quotes, when they come to your website, the the expectation would be like, hey, I upload something, I get it within like 1 second or within fraction of seconds. So if we don't do that, then they will bounce off. So for example, if you upload a diagram and it takes like few minutes to give you a price, then you will bounce off. So that's why the irrespective like how long they have to make a decision, um, the e-commerce world has taught all of us that we don't have patience. We want everything right away without any wait time. Um, okay. So moving to the next one, what challenges might arise in maintaining scalability while ensuring cost prediction accuracy? Yeah, I think we briefly touched on in another question. The challenge here is to make your cost prediction accurate. The more input you have, the more information you have on different variables, the better it would. But at the same time, the more information you're getting, it will slow you down. So you have to make that critical decision in like what is most critical and what information athlete needs to have versus good to have. I think that decision is critical. Otherwise, you may end up slowing down your systems.
Hmm, sure.
Um, How can federated learning help smaller retailers remain competitive without compromising customer data privacy? Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say like we in some of the again the customer, whatever the customer attribute we collect based on again based on their willingness to provide the data. That's why we always have to work with imperfect data. I'd say if you look at the data coverage, it is not 100%. uh, there are uh, explicit data that we collect from the customers or with customers' permission, and there are implicit data which we could actually predict or infer from the customer browsing behavior. um, so that's why I would say is that we you will never get perfect data. You have to use whatever data you have in the best way, either explicit or implicit. I would say with all the concerns around privacy, that implicit data, understanding the browsing pattern and all those things, that does not necessarily invade customer privacy, those data will play a bigger role in some of this targeting and personalizations.
Okay.
What? Yeah,
Maybe
sorry.
we can move to the architectural question because we are close to the end.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. What are the main challenges in building a real-time data ingestion pipeline for dynamic pricing at scale? um yeah, I think this is where the critical thing here would be to what data we need absolutely real time and what data we need we can cache, because at the end of the day, the challenge here is whatever we do, it impacts the speed. And if we are making our customers wait, that is the biggest driver of drop off or bounce. So I think that's where the key is to how do you balance speed with the necessary steps around what data is critical and what needs to be cached versus real time. How does a feature store improve consistency between model training and inference in pricing applications? um, this is this can be solved only with frequent model training and making sure the feedback is structured. So one of the challenges we struggle with is like some of the feedback we got on our pricing are through our sales team. So those feedback is are not structured. So how do we take those feedback and either using LLM or some way we can make it structured so that we can pass that feedback to our model. I think that frequent training and having the right structured data will be key here, to make sure that model training and the inferences are used properly or reflected properly in the pricing applications. What skills are most critical in the team composition to ensure successful deployment of AI pricing models? I think the some of the key skill sets here, as we highlighted, is it needs to be good balance of not just building model like data science capabilities or from a data side data engineering capabilities, but at the same time having that understanding of economics or the acumen of like how a pricing system works. Like that's where I think people have been successful are um, data scientists who can understand economics or economists who can understand data science. So from we will have people with the both the spectrums, but you we need people who actually understand both sides. One side might be their expertise, but the other side they should have enough understanding so that translation is not a problem. Otherwise, often it happens your business person says something and the tech side implements something and they don't align. So I think folks on both sides understanding each other's world will be key. So I'd say you need data scientists who understand pricing and economics, and you need pricing strategists
No,
and economists who understand data science.
we need both. So,
Yeah. How can CD practices be adapted to manage frequent updates and experience in machine learning pricing models? I think one of the thing is like the having the um, federated systems and making sure that the different models are connected in a way that you're not burdening the system with all the different parts running at the same time. How we can sequence it or make sure like plan it in a way that um, you're getting the best out of the performance and also not compromising the accuracy will be key here.
okay, great.
That's pretty much.
Oh, so thank you, thank you, thank you. I want personally to thank you for your quality, for the quality of your presentation and the relevance, of course, of your answers. I think Seme will be agree with me. This session has been very enriching, and I have personally learned a lot from what you share with us today. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. With that, I will now hand it over to Seme for his words. Thank you again, Amarisha.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. We won't be able to thank Amrish enough for the quality of the presentation, as you mentioned, Rodrigue. But yes, and even when we started promoting the event on our online platforms, we started getting those questions, and many of the participants were interested by the topic. And once again, Amrish, thank you very much for all your detailed answers you provided during this session and the insights. So for our followers and for you, Amarish, too, the session will be available on YouTube. So for all those who are interested by the topic, so you can connect to our YouTube channel, and you will have the recording of the session just after starting from from next week. So you can review all what was shared and all the talk that we got for this session. Once again, thank you very much, Amarish. That was very insightful. That was very enriching for us, for the participants too, with especially hot topic and very interesting domain. So retails, how we can manage that, how we can manage the costs, how we can take the profits, how we can implement artificial intelligence and new technologies to optimize. And I'm sure that we have many followers that are also interested by this topic.
Yeah, thank you
So
so much. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, and it was great sharing the experience and also great questions. Thank you, everyone, for being so engaged on this and asking all those wonderful questions. Really appreciate it.
sure, Americ, of course, you are welcome for any upcoming sessions. So if you have new topics to share with us, to share with the community, so we will be very pleased to have you again with us as many times as you want. Okay, you know, the topic is very let's say in high demand. So please don't hesitate to reach out to keep in contact with us if you have any emerging or new topics that you want to share with us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Last word, if you have anything to add, Amarish, before we close the session. Yes, Amarish, anything you want to add before we close the session?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you again. I'm extremely thankful of all this opportunity and all the engagement, all the questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
so much.
for you, Rodrigue, too, and for all our followers and for those who are connected to the session. Thank you very much, and see you next Friday for a new topic and a new session on data and enterprise architectures. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Marushi, and take care.
Thank you.